All right, good Thursday evening, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's doing well. It's a nice, cool finish to the month of July for us here in Amarillo. We'll get to our temperatures here in a second, but I do want to talk about the rain totals that we've had so far through the past 24 hours. You can see we've got a nice swath of some green splotches, really kind of centered around the Highway 60 corridor, give or take 30 or 40 miles. That's where a lot of that rain occurred here over the last day. We had about 5/10 of an inch over at the National Weather Service office in Amarillo. That's going to be the official total for the 24-hour period, but we did have some other areas pick up a little bit more than that, some a bit less. So this is kind of in the middle ground for how much rain we had here over the city. The north side had a little bit less than the south side did, or at least the southeast side. Southwest Amarillo didn't have a whole lot of rain last night, but you guys did have a quick shower this afternoon. I do want to show you some of the highest totals that we've had across some of the mesonet sites around town and around the panhandles. Quay, just south of Quay in Quay County, had over 2.5 inches of rain yesterday. It was one of those isolated thunderstorms that set up shop, didn't move a lot, and it just dumped a lot of rain in one localized area. So they did have some flooding issues out there. Friona picking up almost 2 inches of rain. They did have some flooding on the roads there on Highway 60 for a short duration yesterday afternoon. McLean later in the evening had some flood issues. They had 1.67 inches of rain measured there. House at 1.48, Grady at 1.35, and then two other locations picking up more than an inch of rain was Pampa and Clovis at the ASC site up there. Southeast Amarillo was right at an inch of rain. North side only had 32 hundredths, and then again we had that half inch of rain for the National Weather Service office. Places like Borger and Vega, a little bit more than a quarter of an inch, which again is just a nice little shower, but nothing crazy. So here's the current radar. We've got some isolated storms kind of in that southwest portion of Randall County. Got a really good thunderstorm that's moving south down towards Umbarger and Don. You guys can expect some very heavy rain from that little thunderstorm there. And zoom in just a bit so you guys can see what's going on. So we've got this aerial flood advisory in effect until 7 p.m. They did have some very heavy rain from that storm there. Let's take a look further south, from Bushland. So there's one of those heavy downpours. This one's actually between Canyon and Bushland, and there's some heavier rain actually behind this one, even further south into Randall County. So this localized downpours is kind of the theme we expect for these storms today. It's been a nice cool afternoon, 77 right now here in Amarillo, 83 in Dumas. I think we did get to 80 for a short period this afternoon, but with those thunderstorms that just came through, cloud covers become a bit more prevalent, and so we are seeing those temperatures held back some just by some of the thunderstorms. Dew points very high, so they're going to produce some heavy rainfall wherever they do set up. We just don't really anticipate a whole lot of weather in terms of the storm coverage. So I was just looking at our sky cam over here on the left hand side. Had a funny looking cloud. Was just curious. Nothing to be concerned about though. So here's your outlook for today. It's a general thunderstorm risk. Not expecting severe weather here. You get up towards the mountains of Colorado. Probably a different story up there towards Denver and Fort Collins. And then moving into Friday, we actually fall under some more northwest flow aloft. I do want to show you an upper air sounding. This is something that may look a bit foreign to you guys, but this is just a forecast sounding for the Northwest Panhandle on Saturday. This is not for Friday. This is Saturday. But both days we have northwest flow. So this red line you see here is actually your temperature as you go up in height in the atmosphere. This is what we call a skew T log P diagram, just because our temperatures, they decrease so rapidly as you go up. You have to skew those temperatures. So those isotherms are actually right here. They run at about a 45-degree angle from left to right. So this is just the temperature here at the surface between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius, so 92 degrees Fahrenheit. As you go up, you get close to that zero, 32 degrees Fahrenheit right up here between probably around 600 millibars. And so you're about a third the way up in the atmosphere. So again, it just cools off very quickly. This green line is the dew point. Again, this is stuff that you get from these upper air weather balloons. They launch them across the country. This isn't just a localized thing. This is something that happens, about 133 times a morning. and 133 times in the evening. And sometimes there's even some special soundings from schools. Research facilities will sometimes launch them, and sometimes you even get a special sounding from the National Weather Service. They usually do one in the morning and one in the evenings, but some of them do some in the afternoon too, at like 18Z, which is 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. for us here in the Central Time Zone. But just notice you've got this blue line here. This is what your lifted parcel would do from the surface. So if a parcel at the ground level was picked up, it condenses and cools and condenses to liquid as it, again, reaches this dew point temperature. So you lift the parcel up, condenses and cools, and then it starts to, instead of rising up a dry, what we call adiabat, it goes up a moist adiabat. Moist air has got it basically, it cools off and warms up slower than dry air does, just because it's got more water content in it. So this is your moist adiabat, and then this is your dry adiabat. So this basically would be a portion of your cloud where you've got, again, that water vapor becoming condensed into a liquid, so it becomes more visible, and so that's where you get that cloud. This is where you would get that lifted condensation level, where the cloud base would be, and then a little bit above that's your level of free convection. So don't really have much of a warm nose forecast for tomorrow, or not tomorrow, for Saturday. So if we can get storms going, which we probably will, at least over on the mountains, they'll probably have plenty of instability to work with. All this space between the blue dotted line and the red line is what you call convective available potential energy. And this forecast sounding is actually, depicting about 3,000 joules of CAPE, which is plenty for a severe thunderstorm. Another thing we want to watch for is our wind shear. So if we look at the lower levels, wind shear is pretty abysmal. In the bottom 3 kilometers, anywhere from 0 to about 20 kilometers or knots of shear. And then you've got 36 though when you get to the surface to 6 kilometers. And then you've got 50 plus when you get to the surface to 8 kilometers. So that is something to take note of. It's not a whole lot of, directional shear where you get this really big curved photograph, but you do get some directional shear because the surface winds are flowing from the south, and then they go west, and then they go northwest as you get higher up. So this could be a potentially active setup and a very favorable setup for some severe storm potential, as well as maybe what we call a mesoscale convective system. This happens a lot in the late summer months, in August, and sometimes in September and October. If we've got the instability, we've got the wind shear, we've got the moisture, that usually comes in line together, and that allows for a complex of storms. Well, they start discrete as isolated cells, but then they kind of merge and grow into a bigger complex, and they get pushed into the northwest panhandles. I think that might actually unfold heading into Friday and Saturday evenings. So we've got a marginal risk for Friday for right now. I would imagine that Saturday will probably feature similar conditions. Saturday, the winds aloft look a bit more favorable to maintain storm updraft maintenance. So I think if we're going to have a bigger event for some stronger storms, Saturday will probably be the day that happens, but we still could see some of that, similar setup come into play tomorrow evening as well. So here's your flood concern for tomorrow. It's just a marginal risk, not going to be a huge concern. These storms today will be somewhat stagnant in their motion, but tomorrow and Saturday, they should have more of a forward motion to them. So flood concerns should be limited just because those storms are going to be moving rather than just setting up on the same spots. So here's your probability for an inch of rain on Friday. The further northwest you go, the better those chances are going to be. Saturday will probably look very similar to this. The further northwest you get, the better your opportunity is going to be for that 1 inch of rainfall. And that's another thing that we'll have to factor into our forecast for next week as well. We'll get to that in a second, but we are going to dry out towards the middle of the week, and we will probably heat up. Whether or not we get into the triple digits is something to keep an eye on. So here's a small complex that tries to come through tonight. Again, we don't have a whole lot of wind shear aloft, so that stuff probably will fall apart pretty quick before it gets into the Texas Panhandle. If it does get into the Texas Panhandle, we're thinking like Dallam and Hartley County would be about the only locations that would see any of those dissipating showers and thunderstorms as we head into Friday morning. Friday afternoon, here comes, again, a better batch of rain. We'll have some more instability. Temperatures are in the 80s, mid 80s rather than the low 80s. We'll have some more more wind shear coming off the higher terrain. And so this could be a better complex that gets further into the panhandles. Probably could get all the way towards the Amarillo area before it falls apart completely. And then moving into Saturday, this I think will probably be the day, if we're going to have a bigger setup, it's probably going to be this one. You can actually see a somewhat semi-discrete line of storms. Some of this may actually even be some supercell thunderstorms back up into Kansas and parts of Nebraska. We will have a conditional amount of wind shear. I wouldn't rule out a supercell embedded in some of this stuff on Saturday, but I don't think it's going to be a huge concern. I think this will be mostly a damaging wind threat with just a bigger complex coming through. So after we get through that northwest flow event, this ridge of high pressure starts to get closer to the high plains and park itself on top of the Texas Panhandle. This is Wednesday of next week. You can see that ridge kind of centered on top of us. Thursday looking very similar. But we do have a trough out here in the Midwest, and we do have another trough up here that's starting to form over in the Pacific Northwest. And now what that could do is probably will just limit the overall duration that this ridge will set up over the area. So it is going to get hot next week. Wednesday and Thursday look to be our 2 days of concern for maybe some triple digit issues. But after that, I think we're going to start to see that trough suppress that ridge even more further south, closer to next weekend. So as we get towards like August 10th, August 12th, moving into the following work week, that dry pattern may kind of get pushed further south towards southeast New Mexico, towards Big Bend, and we may actually fall back under northwest flow towards the middle of August. So this dry, hot stretch of weather, while it may be 5 or 6 days, I don't think it's going to be a long-term issue. It's probably going to be short-lived. We may fall back under some of that northwest flow by the time we move into the middle of August again. So this hot, dry pattern shouldn't last very long. Another thing is how much rain we've had. Do we get into the triple digits? A lot of these models over the last few weeks have been trying to bring in the heat, getting us back up to the 100 plus degree range. There are some disparities in the models. So the Euro is finally starting to hint at maybe us getting to about 100, 101 degrees here in Amarillo on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then cooling off by the time we head into next weekend. It's got us at 101 to 100 degrees for a 2 to 3 day stretch. The American model is much more aggressive with that ridge of high pressure, has those height anomalies much higher than normal compared to climate averages. And so by Thursday, it actually has Amarillo right around 105 to 110. That is what I really think we should take with a grain of salt. While there are a few outlier models that have been hinting at this very consistently, the GFS does have a known dry bias, and we have been very wet recently. So I don't think that we'll probably get into the 105 to 110 range. Getting to 100 degrees might be more attainable, and even getting up to like 102, 103 might be a stretch in some of these areas. For places like Childress and Paducah, you guys have been drier than the rest of us. You're also in a lower elevation. Those areas more than likely will climb into those triple digits next week for at least a couple of days. I think it is a bit more uncertain, though, as you get up on top of the Cap Rock, especially around the Amarillo area, around Hereford, back up towards Adrian and Vega. Some of these areas have had like 21 inches of rain this year, and we've already had, another ½ inch to an inch of rain in some of these spots again the last 24 hours. We still have more rain chances coming down the pipeline for the next few days. So I think it's going to be questionable if we can get to 100 next week. So we've got you at 98 right now. We did consider maybe bumping these up a little bit, just given the overall trend with guidance, but we're going to stick with our gut. We're going to hold us under 100 just because of how things have played out recently, and just given the current conditions that we're experiencing right now. That moisture in the soil will probably hold back those temperatures to a degree. And again, we've just got quite a bit of green grass, which usually helps with that evaporative transpiration, puts a little bit more moisture in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And so I think it might be a big task, tall task for us to hit 100 next week. Not impossible, but I do think that we will probably struggle to get there. That's all I got for you for this afternoon. Kind of went a little long today. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you tonight.